Okay, so you know how much I love a good self-improvement experiment and how the first few hours of your day can totally make or break things. Well, we are diving deep into Sunrise for the Body and Mind: 100 Morning Routines to Start the Day by Christine Michaelis and Nicola Turi. And this book, it really grabbed my attention because it's not just about what you should be doing each morning. It's like, it gets that, you got to get your mindset right too.
Yeah, totally. So many self-help books are all about taking action,
Hmm.
but they kind of miss that. Without the right mindset, those changes you're trying to make are probably not going to last.
It's so true. And what I love about this book is that it lays out this super unique 100-day plan. So every single day, you get this little package deal: a quote, a link to a 5-minute guided meditation, and another one for a quick 5-minute workout.
Oh, I like that. They're incorporating both physical and mental practices right away.
Exactly. They totally get that mind-body connection.
Huh.
And get this, they even have space for you to write down your thoughts and that one thing you really want to accomplish that day. I don't know about you, but I am such a sucker for a good productivity hack. But here's where it gets really interesting. Each day also has a question. And these aren't your typical journal prompts or
I
anything.
was going to say, some of those questions were surprisingly deep.
Seriously, like day 2, they ask, what 3 things would you take to a deserted island? It's like you're in a mental escape room before you even get out of bed.
I thought that one was so interesting because it forces you to really think about your priorities.
Yeah.
Like if you could only have a few things, what would be truly essential?
Right. What would make the cut?
It's like this tiny little microcosm of your whole life packed into a desert island survival kit.
Exactly. Okay, get ready for this one day 8. When did you last laugh so hard you almost peed yourself?
Gotta love a good dose of humor in the morning.
Yeah.
But I mean, recalling moments of joy and laughter, that's a huge for your well-being.
Totally. And then they hit you with this really deep one on day 12. If you have to decide for only one thing that you want to accomplish before you die, what would it be?
Mm.
Talk about an existential crisis before breakfast.
That definitely makes you think. And isn't that the whole point? It's like a little nudge to really connect with your values and think
Totally.
about your legacy.
It's like, okay, universe, I hear you loud and clear. Time to get to work on that bucket list.
Yeah.
You know, one of the things I really loved about this book was the overall philosophy. They have all these amazing little quotes sprinkled throughout. Like day 5 has this gem: if you can't be yourself, you can't be happy. I mean, it seems so obvious when you say it out loud, but honestly, how often do we actually live that way?
It's true. It's like a good reminder that if you want to be truly happy, you have to be authentically you. And that takes courage, especially in a world that's constantly telling you to be someone else.
So true. Okay, and then there's this one from day 50 that I think a lot of us can relate to. Simplify your life to make it easier and more enjoyable.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds pretty good in theory, right?
Right. But it's definitely a journey, not a destination. Figuring out what really matters and letting go of the rest takes a lot of reflection. It's not something you do once and you're done.
So true. Okay, last quote, I promise. This one's from day 69. We are not bodies that think of the soul, but souls that have a body.
Ooh.
I love that. It's
Yeah.
like they're really pushing you to think about yourself as more than just your physical body, that
Right.
there's this whole other spiritual dimension to who we are.
It's a total mind shift. Okay, so we've talked about the book's overall approach, but I'm dying to dig into some of these individual questions. Like on day 3, they ask, what is the most important object in your life and why? What a way to start the day right. I'm curious, was there anything that really jumped out at you from all of this?
Well, I think what's really fascinating is how the authors take these everyday objects and use them as a way to help you learn more about yourself. Like on day 13, they ask about the wisest thing you've ever heard someone say.
Ooh, that's a good one. I'm already racking my brain trying to think of. Right, like it's about tapping into the wisdom that's already out there, the things we've already learned in our life.
It's like those little nuggets of wisdom that people share with you, and they just stick with you.
Exactly.
And you know, that actually reminds me of what we're doing right now with this deep dive, don't you think?
Absolutely. It's about connecting the dots
Yeah.
and sometimes finding meaning in the most unexpected places. And that actually brings us to another really cool thing about this book. They seem really interested in how connected everything is, like different parts of your life. For example, day 22 asks, is there anything that you want to get rid of in your life?
Ooh, that's a loaded question.
Right?
It could be about physical stuff, clutter,
Hmm.
but it could also be about like bad habits or even relationships that aren't good for you anymore.
Exactly. It's about clearing out the things that aren't serving you anymore.
Making space for something new. Okay, this next one is so out there I had to include it. Day 27. If you could talk to animals, which one would you talk to and what would you ask it?
That's a good one.
I love how they mix in these kind of silly questions with the more serious ones.
Right, like a little reminder not to take everything so seriously.
Exactly. Okay, speaking of not taking things too seriously, Day 30 asks, if you could read minds, whose would you want to read?
Oh man, that could be dangerous.
Right.
But it is fun to think about.
Total invasion of privacy, though.
Although it'd be interesting to know what other people are really thinking.
I
What
know.
motivates them, what they dream about, what they're afraid of.
It's like a window into their world. Although, knowing me, I'd probably just end up hearing something super awkward. Okay, this next one from Day 32 got me thinking. If you could invent one thing, what would it be? What
Yeah.
about you?
Oh wow, that's a tough one. There are so many possibilities. Hmm. I think I would invent something that would help us understand each other better, like different cultures maybe. Some kind of device that could translate not just languages, but also those little cultural things,
Mm-hmm.
customs and stuff.
Wow. That's amazing. You're thinking really big picture there. And I'm over here like, I just want a self-folding laundry machine.
Hey, don't underestimate the power of a self-folding laundry machine.
You're right. You're right. But seriously, I do think that's one of the things I like about this book. It makes you think on different levels. It's not just about, improving yourself as an individual. It's about how we're all connected and how our own journeys fit into something bigger.
Exactly.
And speaking of challenging assumptions, Day 38 asks, can artificial intelligence be creative? Now, that's a question we could debate all day.
It's a big one, especially with all the advancements in technology lately. What does it even mean to be creative? Can a machine really create something like art or music that moves us in the same way that a human can? I don't know.
It's a really interesting question, and this book does not shy away from those big philosophical questions. Check out Day 40. Why do we judge ourselves by our intentions, but judge others by their actions?
That's such a good point. It's so easy to be hard on other people,
Right.
but then we give ourselves a pass because we know what our intentions were. We're
Right.
always our own best defense attorneys.
Exactly.
It's a good reminder to try to give other people the benefit of the doubt. You never know what someone else is going through.
So true. And speaking of thought-provoking questions, Day 44 is a doozy. What is your definition of evil?
Wow, that's a heavy one.
Right. First thing in the morning.
But you know what? Maybe it's important to think about these big questions.
I agree.
It's how we figure out what's important to us and how we make sense of the world.
Totally. And sometimes the questions that make us the most uncomfortable are the ones we need to be asking. Okay, one more from this section that I have to get your take on. Day 46. Can you really experience anything objectively?
That's deep.
Right.
That's a question philosophers have been debating forever.
It's like asking, is reality even real?
Yeah.
It hurts my brain to even think about it.
But it is a good exercise,
Yeah.
to question our assumptions and acknowledge that everyone sees the world a little differently.
I like that. Okay, let's switch gears a bit and talk about some of the questions that are more about, personal growth and self-discovery. Day 49 asks, what do you most enjoy learning about?
Ooh.
What gets your curiosity going?
Let's see. I'm a pretty curious person in general. I love learning new things. But lately I've been really interested in the intersection of technology and art. It's fascinating to see how people are using technology to create new forms of expression.
That's so cool. What about you? What are you most curious about?
Well, I think for me, I love learning about different cultures and perspectives. Travel is a big passion of mine. But I also love reading books and watching documentaries that kind of transport me to different parts of the world. It's just so enriching to experience the world through someone else's eyes.
Totally. It's like food for the soul. Okay, let's talk about a few more of these questions before we wrap things up. On day 53, they ask, which habit would be the hardest to give up for you?
Ooh, that's tough. We all have those little vices, right?
Mhm.
Or those habits that we know are good for us, but we just can't seem to quit.
Totally.
Let me think. You know what, for me, I think it would be, honestly, I think the hardest habit for me to break would be overthinking things. I can get so stuck in my head, you know, analyzing every little detail, and it can be really hard to just make a decision and move on.
Oh, I feel that.
It's something I'm working on, though.
It's a process.
It really is.
What about you? Any habits you'd like to say see you later to?
Oh, gosh, where do I even start? I am the queen of procrastination, especially when it's something I don't really want to do.
Ugh, tell me about it.
But hey, nobody's perfect, right?
That is the truth. Speaking of which, Day 50 Slivis asks about our proudest accomplishments. I always find it so interesting to hear how people answer this one. because it really tells you a lot about what they value. Some people are all about those career wins. And then others, it's like their relationships or their personal growth that means the most to them.
That's so
It's
true.
like a little reminder that success isn't one size fits all.
Exactly. You get to decide what success looks like for you.
Well said. And speaking of defining success on your own terms, I think Day 62's question really gets at that. Do you think we are bodies that think there is a soul, or are we souls that have a body?
That
It's like
is,
they're asking you to think beyond just your physical self, you know?
it's a good reminder that we're more than just our bodies and our accomplishments, that there's this whole other spiritual side to us.
Totally. And on that note of living a more fulfilling life, Day 66 asks, what would you do if you weren't afraid of anything? Which I think is such a powerful question for figuring out what might be holding us back.
Oh, for sure.
It really makes you think about what you would do differently if you knew you couldn't fail.
What dreams would you go after?
Right.
What risks would you take?
It's a good exercise in possibility thinking.
It really is. And sometimes just giving yourself permission to dream big can be the push you need to make a change.
So true. Okay, let's talk about a few more of these before we wrap things up. On Day 70, they ask, are you where you want to be? If not, how can you get there? If yes, how can you ensure you stay there? I feel like this is a good one to ask yourself regularly.
No, definitely.
Uh-huh.
It's so easy to get caught up in the day-to-day and lose sight of the bigger picture.
You know, totally. Like, am I even on the right track here?
Exactly.
Okay, and since we're talking about checking in with yourself, Day 72 asks, what is your definition of success? Which again, I love this question because it's all about defining success on your own terms, not what society tells you it should look like.
Right. Because what's important to one person might not be important to another, and that's totally okay.
Exactly. Okay, let's shift gears just a little bit here and
Yeah.
talk about some of the questions that are more about being kind to yourself.
Because we could all use a little more self-love, right?
Yes, 100%. Okay, so Day 78 asks, what do you like most about yourself?
Ah, I like that one.
It's so easy to focus on the negative, you know?
It really is.
But remembering to appreciate the good stuff about ourselves, that's huge.
It's like giving yourself a little pep talk.
Exactly. And speaking of self-talk, Day 86 asks, how do you speak to yourself? In a gentle or bad way? And honestly, I know I can be pretty hard on myself sometimes.
Me too.
It's a good reminder to be more aware of that inner voice, you know?
Absolutely. Because the way we talk to ourselves, it really does make a difference.
Okay, we're getting close to the end of our deep dive here, but there are a couple more questions I want to get to. Day 90 asks, what do you believe about yourself in your life? Is what you believe truly serving who you want to be in the world? It's like they're challenging you to look at your beliefs and see if they're holding you back.
Because a lot of times we have these limiting beliefs that we don't even realize are there.
Totally.
And until we challenge those beliefs, it's going to be hard to create the life we want.
So true. Okay, and then this one from Day 94 is kind of a mind bender. We all create our own reality. Which one do you create and believe in?
Whoa.
I know, right?
That's a powerful one.
It is. It's like they're saying we have more control over our lives than we think we do.
And the first step is believing it. Right?
Exactly. Well, we've covered a lot of ground today. We've talked about our deepest values, our wildest dreams, and everything in between. But now it's time to wrap up our deep dive into Sunrise for the Body and Mind.
It's been such a fun conversation.
It really has. This book has given us a lot to think about, and I hope it's inspired our listeners to take a look at their own morning routines.
Yeah, me too.
And maybe even try incorporating some of these questions into their day. So on that note, we have one final question for you, our amazing listeners. If you could choose just one question from Sunrise for the Body and Mind to add to your morning routine, which would it be and why? Let us know. Until next time, keep those minds curious and those morning routines fresh